Larry, it's that time. It's Larry Goldberg, folks, in case you don't know it. Larry Goldberg is a regular on the channel. He is my co-host on Mondays and Friday nights, a gentleman who gets more views than anybody else. No other co-host gets more than you, Larry.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know what
It
it is.
must it must be my slim body.
It's here. I'm sure that it's the fact that you've outgrown your hair. That is the reason. Although quite a few of the other co-hosts have also outgrown their hair. Anyway, let's switch to the subject of the night because there is no Tesla news. There is nothing on the news right now except what?
We may be having an election tomorrow.
Possible. It's possible. Well, I assume that you've seen the final polling. You've heard the pundits. What do you think happens tomorrow? Do you have an opinion? Are you willing to venture an idea about who wins the presidency, the Senate, and the House?
You know, in the in the social media feeds that I get, it feels that there's going to be a Republican win at, multiple levels. It feels like a red wave. But we've had this feeling before and been
Didn't happen.
disillusioned or
Yes, 2022 did not turn
disillusioned.
out
Yeah.
the way we thought.
I I I really think that Trump is going to win, not because he's the best candidate. It's because Kamala is the worst candidate.
I see.
I
Yes.
mean, in my 78 years, and he said 72 years, I said 72 years. In my 78 years, I don't think I have seen a worse candidate. I mean, seriously, and we've seen some pretty bad candidates in
Yeah.
our time,
Yeah.
but she is, there is absolutely no there. None,
Yeah.
none at all. And, the whole history of how she became
Hmm.
this candidate is really, it really is not a pleasant story for the Democratic Party. A party of great history, fantastic candidates, outstanding presidents, and then this.
Hmm. Yeah.
And she could be elected and surprise us all,
Right.
but I don't think she's going to surprise us at all.
So now what we want to do the rest of our time tonight, Larry, is I want to bring this into Tesla. I want to talk about it in
Yeah,
terms of the impact on Tesla. I did an entire
yeah.
show on this on Saturday night, but I wanted to get your opinion and I want to approach it a little differently too. So we've had Tesla down, I think, 6 days in a row.
Mm.
And some people are saying that that's just profit taking. Some think it might be worry over quarter 4 numbers that we're not going to get there. But then some are saying that, and I've said this, that it might be a bit of trimming because folks don't want to be too far out there if Harris wins. So what do you think?
All the above.
All of the above. Okay.
I think, we're in the fairly natural ebb after the flow post the results and the event and the news around FSD. And I think there's a natural ebb after that exuberance. There's some concern about the politics of, Trump not winning.
Uh-huh.
In other words, Elon finding himself on the losing end when he's put so many chips on the table for, the Republican wave. So I think a lot of people have had to hedge for because of various factors of this, which means we either have a great buying opportunity or we're still over our skis.
Yes, one or the other, right?
I mean, it is truly, I mean, there's no middle path here. There isn't like Trump kind of makes it, and Kamala wins, but and Tesla and Elon gets on with there's no middle ground here.
Yeah.
It's one or the other.
Right. So now we have and I brought this up on my show this morning. We have this, as you point out, this moment in time.
Yeah.
Stock is going to be impacted by this moment in time.
Yeah.
But I want to look at it from the standpoint of that moment in time a little bit. I want to look at some details, but I want to start off by asking a few open-ended questions.
Sure.
What is your greatest hope for Tesla if we have a Trump victory? What is it that you think is going to be the best part of the outcome if, in fact, Trump gets in? For Tesla, not for the world, not for you and me, not for free speech, for Tesla itself.
Well, I think the primary win for the American people will be a clear strategy economically where we understand what the targets are and what the game is, what is being put into play and how we plan to get there.
Mm-hmm.
That, I think could add several points to, in general, the level of confidence, which in turn will play into the stock exchange. Now, it could be the plan is a bad plan, but I think that this is going to be, if Trump wins, it's going to be a very pragmatic cabinet, and they're going to essay some things, in particular, lower taxes, use the threat of tariffs. I know that Jared Kushner, in his work with the Mexican and Canadian governments to negotiate the replacement of NAFTA, worked extremely well and crafted a fantastic deal. I think that deal has to be built up upon. And similarly, in foreign policy, I would expect clarity, direction, and I would also expect, that we see movement in the Middle East, very strong movement in the Middle East, with engagement of all the players in the Middle East to try and come to some modus vivendi where Israel can take its place amongst the nations of the Middle East. And we find a modus vivendi for the Arab state in Israel, the West Bank and Gaza in some kind of state that can stand up and be a responsible member of the international community.
Mm-hmm.
Beyond that, I think the challenge with China is going to be, Trump's pragmatic approach to foreign policy to negotiate from strength a relationship with China, which is more in keeping with, an exchange between equals. I think Chinese manufacturing is going to have a hard time penetrating into this wall that Trump is going to start building, and American manufacturers will have an opportunity to start competing with China on a much more even footing, if not a superior footing. And I think that's going to change the terms of international trade. It's not going to take us back to the 50s, but it's going to take us, and it's not going to return us to the 90s and the aughts, where China was allowed to do anything they wished to do at the WTO, beggar the rules of the WTO. So that would be my hope. All of those, this is hopes, wishes, and dreams. And as far as NATO is concerned, I see a dramatic strengthening of NATO. I see Trump, lowering the hammer in terms of you have to meet your commitments. You have to start arming. You have to present, a common front. And I think that will strengthen the resolve of the Europeans to support a reasonable agreement between Ukraine and China, look, and Russia. Look, I'm looking for a strong agreement between Ukraine and Russia. I'm looking for a Europe that can stand up. I'm looking for a US that will support Europe standing up, and I'm looking for Europe to support Ukraine. That's my view. Others in the Trump camp may have a different view, but I'm giving you what I hope for.
Right. Now, what would you hope for Tesla specifically? If Elon has put all this effort, all this energy, we know that he's really doing it for free speech. He's doing it for freedom. He's doing it for economic improvement in the overall, world economy, U.S. economy. But I don't think he's doing it because he hopes to get some gain for Tesla. But there might be gains that come for Tesla. What do you think might be some of the gains that Tesla might see?
Well, a new economic regime would make would improve the sales of vehicles for a couple of reasons. I think we'd see very rapidly falling interest rates. Which is very important for car sales. I think we'll see improvements in protection for US manufacturers of cars. I think, the biggest issue will be how well Elon can navigate the Chinese position for Tesla and, its continued success in China and even more importantly, the opening and expansion of the new battery mega pack plant. So I think for Tesla, the relationship of Elon with a Trump administration is going to somewhat impact sales of cars to the green wave, to the green supporters. We've already seen that. I don't know if it's going to get worse. I don't know if it's going to ameliorate. It's hard to tell. But I think that the Cybertruck continues to advance. I think that, Tesla's very, very aggressive continued expansion of the charging network, which, it's an unsung story at this point. Nobody's talked about it,
Right.
but it's going apace.
Right.
I think all of that positions Tesla very well in the United States. And I think Europe is going to turn somewhat. I think the struggle we've had in Europe is going to ameliorate somewhat. So I think it's a little bit more of the same. There's talk now that Tesla sales will not meet the guidance that Elon gave us at the quarterly earnings meeting. I think it's too early to judge.
Right.
But it's not looking great at the moment. If you look at China sales, they were somewhat down. If you look at, where we are in the United States, we need better.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to tell whether a Trump win will mean the sudden resurgence in economic activity as we experienced, back in 2016.
Right.
But on balance, I think this will be good. A win by Trump will be good for Tesla, just as a win for Kamala will have a really serious negative impact on Tesla in the short term, is my belief.
Let's come to that in a second. So I made the argument Saturday and again this morning that, and I didn't make it exactly this way. I've refined it since, Larry, that for every single product in the pipeline right now, whether it's Optimus, whether it's Robotaxi, Cybercab, version 2, unboxed, et cetera. You don't go all the way up and down the line of the things that are in process right now. The designs are done. The engineering is basically done. The plan, the timing of the plan, the execution, all that's all done. The people have been hired at the top levels to make sure that that plan goes into effect. We're kind of past the Elon part of all of that.
No, we're not.
Well, when I say past, I don't mean past in terms of not having any impact. I'm talking about in terms of the kind of impact that he has at the beginning of these processes. And that,
Don't underestimate
okay.
Elon's ability to bring things home.
Oh, no, I'm not saying that he will be gone. I'm only, and we'll get to his business of him being on the commission, setting up a commission in a minute. I'm just talking about in terms of the impact of either Trump or Harris on the actual plan of execution.
Yeah.
Maybe not very big in terms of it might impact it on the margins, which are important, but not that much overall.
I mean, you're talking about the impact of Elon's time in the administration. That's what you're talking about.
Issue. That's a
you notice I didn't touch that issue.
Because
not because Elon reamed me out about it, not because of that reason, but because it's become very clear that he's not going to join the administration in any formal sense. That he's going to be the kibitzer in chief, and he's going to give guidance. How long that will last, how effective it will be, and at what point he'll need to actually take the reins himself is an open question. But certainly in the first year and possibly the first 2 years, I don't think it's an issue. Now, I've done some numbers. I've done some very serious study, and I hope to bring out I've actually recorded it, but I hope to bring out a piece about it very shortly on YouTube. But the truth the reality of is that if you look at our entire deficit, the amount of dollars that can be affected by reduction in spend is actually marginal to the issue of our deficit. The real deficit lies in 3 areas: healthcare, retirement, and interest.
Right.
Those 3 items make up 2/3 of the deficit.
Right.
And they also make up the kind of untouchable part of the deficit that saving money is not going to solve. The balance of the deficit is $500 billion. The balance of the potential savings in the deficit is $500 billion. So if Elon's going to save $2 trillion, I think he's talking it over the course of the administration.
So Larry, let me back up just a bit on that. Since you say you've already recorded it, but maybe I'll change your mind.
Okay.
Within healthcare, within Social Security, within Medicare, all of those three elements, not counting interest gets impacted, of course.
Healthcare and Medicare are one and the same.
Okay, so we get
roughly. There are some agencies other than Medicare, but basically it's all under the department of one department.
All of those, believe it, even though a big part of Social Security is the checks that go out to you and me.
That's 99% of it.
So it only has a 1% overhead?
Maybe 2%.
Oh,
it's
really?
not. It's a rounding figure. The problem is not the cost of administration. The actual payments to seniors like you and me are the vast bulk of the expense of Social Security. The actual payments to healthcare providers are the vast bulk of healthcare costs. Now, I happen to know this because my company supplied technology to the. Anyway, the point is, you don't have to be a supplier of technology to those departments. if you just look at the numbers, the amount of money spent on administration is maybe 2%. 2%. So if you can save 1%.
That's super efficient.
No, it is not, because the differential is gigantic. We're talking about 2 to 4, rising from 2 to $5 trillion. The 2% may be in the billions and maybe be in the 100 billion, but we're talking 2 to $5 trillion a year, starting at 2, rising to 5 trillion over the next 10 years. That's what we're talking about between the actual commitments we have under Social Security and the trend line of healthcare. Now, to solve the healthcare problem, we'd have to get into the healthcare system. Now, systematically, there are gigantic improvements to be made. And and you know, at one point, the guy from Amazon, Jeff Bezos, and the guy from JP Chase, we're going to form JP Chase and Amazon formed a company. They were going to solve healthcare. They gave up. Now, if Elon would dedicate his life to fixing healthcare, that would change everything. But that's only half the puzzle. The other half is Social Security. And that's the third rail of American politics.
But it has to be solved by 33. So why don't we solve it now?
It would be fantastic, but I will tell you that the way the country's divided right now, it's going to be very difficult. Except I will say this, that if there's one person who could affect it, it would be Trump in his last term, because he could do the kind of thing that nobody would be prepared to do. But that's what it's going to take. So all I'm trying to say is, yes, Elon can have a huge impact on that $500 billion a year over the next 10 years. But it's not going to fix the problem.
Okay. Well, but then that, if it brings it down to a workable number, then interest rates will be impacted.
No, because interest rates, the impact on interest rates is all about those two big numbers, healthcare and Social Security. Those two numbers are between $5 and $7 trillion. The rest of the budget, the deficit, is about $500 billion and remains at that level for the next 10 years. So even if he completely balances the budget and gets rid of that $500 billion, the debt goes up by
Still goes up.
$5 to $7 trillion a year. $5 to $7 trillion a year.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll be interested to watch your show. So I'm trying to wrap my head around the numbers because, of course, they're all so big, it's hard to think. But you don't think that if we reduce the deficit, that impacts interest rates? It seems
no, they won't, because the amount that you're talking about reducing the deficit is not sufficient to impact the macro of the situation.
I see. Okay.
The macro situation is that the deficit related to retirement benefits and healthcare completely swamped the amount of the deficit that relate. Now, it's marginally better. I mean, it's $500 billion better. Nobody can say boo about to that.
Right.
But, you know, I mean, look, it's like this. You have to pay the bank back $12.5 thousand a year, a month, a year. All right, say a year. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I can reduce that to 12,000 a year.
I see.
Do you see that it doesn't really have a material impact on how your debt's going to go up year after year after year?
Yeah. Yeah.
Instead of going up by 12,500, it's going up by 12,000. I mean, that's good, but it's not going to fix the problem.
Okay. All right. Okay. So let's see if we get back on track again. We got off onto a big long rabbit trail there. But if we come back to the impact on Tesla itself,
yeah,
Harris is actually the one elected. Given what my proposal that things are kind of in place.
Yeah.
Forgetting about Elon's time commitment to the administration, because he wouldn't have a time commitment to the administration if she's the one elected. Do you think that she can have a significant impact on the execution of those projects that are so far along?
My biggest fear is that her wing of the party, of the Democratic Party, have discovered the use of the law
Yes.
to destroy their opponents. And my biggest fear is that they bring the full weight of the federal government law fair, organization against Elon.
Specifically.
That would be my biggest fear. And, the attack space has expanded dramatically in the last couple of months. So their chances of attacking is gigantic. And they are remorseless. When I read about, I'm not reading extreme right-wing. I don't live in that world, the extreme right-wing publications. I mean, I'm reading the Free Press. Free Press is as centrist as you can get.
Right.
And in the Free Press this morning, there was this talk about the laptop, the infamous laptop.
Right.
And there were two senior people from the IRS talking about what had been done to them before the last election by the FBI and by the Justice Department. And by the way, that was a Justice Department nominally under Trump.
Right, nominally, yes.
And so if you think about that being, 4 years ago, and you think about how far lawfare has come in those 4 years, and when you think about some of the notions that have been essayed by the institutional press, by the organs of the Democratic Party, it's as simple as that. Because they're all very left-wing, they're all identify very strongly that you can see that the lawfare opportunities are gigantic. And so with a president in power who herself was, a lawyer and a prosecutor, I have no idea how far they will go.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is not going to be very popular with my friends, on the left of center, but I think that it's, it threatens the unity of the state.
Okay. All right. Well, let's go the other way again. Let's say that Trump does win.
Yeah.
Some are saying that Musk will use the position of the head of the Musk Commission, or whatever it's going to be called, to enrich himself. Now, if we look at that in terms of where that could happen, I have a hard time figuring out where he enriches himself, because again, these projects are largely done.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at how well he's done with a hostile administration, you can see that, he doesn't really depend upon the government. The government depends upon him. I mean, that's just the truth of the matter. Yeah, I mean, if they do conduct this lawfare, they could try and cut off his companies. It would be very damaging to the administration, very damaging. Can you imagine us losing our lead in space? Can you imagine that?
Yeah.
I read today that China, there's an agency in China that's copying the Starship, this new rocket that Tesla's testing. They plan to roll it out in 2032.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, I mean, and that's planned to. That's planned to.
Well, they plan to test it in 2030. They plan to actually have it operational in 2032. And Starship is not operational. It's probably a year or two away from being operational, but still that gives you a sense
Yeah.
that they're 5 to 6 years behind in, in their hopes and dreams.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
What's the administration going to do?
Yeah.
Are they going to nationalize SpaceX? Are they going to nationalize Tesla? I don't think so. They can't break up either company because neither company is big enough to be broken up, under the, if you look at the guidelines. So I'm not saying that Elon himself is not vulnerable. I'm saying his companies are not vulnerable. Now, can they find criminal actions against him? Probably, because they found all kinds of criminal actions against Trump. Could they find them, in relation to this lottery in Pennsylvania? I don't know. The lawyers are very creative, and they can make the extraordinary appear to be sublime. It is commonplace in Soviet Union to use the law in very legalistic terms to do the most dreadful things, and these people, the people on the extreme left, have shown a propensity to do that, and not even the extreme left. I mean,
Oh,
if you look at the Justice Department, the Trump Justice Department suppressing news about Biden, and then, the Biden department, conducting this kind of lawfare, never mind that the lawfare started even under the Trump administration, then you can see that it could be a serious risk.
yeah, absolutely. So a lot of people are very worried about the IRA going away if Trump is elected.
Oh, it would be a good thing.
Now, would you want to see all of it go away? I keep on saying I'd like to keep the part that has to do with the batteries and the pack.
I get the accounting, I get the whole thing, I understand it all, but I personally don't believe in any of it.
Okay, all right.
I think that not having these artificial supports leads to better solutions. It leads to much, much more rigorous and robust research. It means much, much more rigorous manufacturing. It means you have to get a lot better, not just better enough to take advantage of the. And my good friend Rohan Patel, he criticizes me for this, and he points out how much money, blah, 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 blah. But I don't buy the first order effects. I think it's the second, third, and fourth order effects that drive you. Listen, the Model S came out without any of this stuff.
Right.
The Model X came out with it. The Model 3 came out. Now, it's true that there is, $500 million every quarter that Tesla earns from, these payments by
Right.
these payments by the OEMs, and that does help a lot. But honestly, if the IRA went away, I wouldn't attend the funeral.
Okay, all right, okay. That sounds good. So what else has happened in the run up here to the election? Anything else that I haven't covered that you think is important in terms of Tesla?
Not so much in terms of the importance of importance to Tesla. I think more importance to X. I think X is in the firing line.
Uh,
I think it's been in the epicenter of this free speech movement, and as have several other organizations. I think it's an important election. I hope people are going to emerge from it with less anger and less spite. There's a war going on in Europe. How that war ends, whether we have a Trump or a Kamala administration, is a wider question. If Kamala wins, so much turns on whom she appoints. If we get a Bob Kerry back again in the State Department, it could be catastrophic for the country. On the other hand, there are a few really good people in that, in the Democratic Party who could do well. Same in every other area. So, and if we get a Trump, the question is who he appoints. If he brings in, his son-in-law, that would be a very positive move. He's talked about, using his better knowledge of people, his better understanding of people in Washington to hire better people. I hope he hires better people than he had before. I hope he's very careful about the AG he selects, by the way.
Yeah, no kidding. So Larry, you and I are probably not 100% aligned on the Ukraine. I don't want to get into the details, but would you be okay with a solution that involved a ironclad, as much as you can make an ironclad agreement that Ukraine cannot be part of NATO as part of an agreement?
No, not really.
Okay.
I think the ability of Ukraine to become part of NATO is going to be the only way to keep Russia from taking over Ukraine. I think an agreement which says that if Russia at all invades Ukraine again, Ukraine will automatically become a member of NATO. So you can keep Ukraine out of NATO unless
Oh, all right.
USSR violates the border.
I see.
I think that would be acceptable to me.
Hmm.
I think NATO is a critical organization for the defense of Europe.
Mhm.
If people don't think that Europe needs a defense against Russia, they were either born too late or too stupid.
Yeah, I
I'm a
have,
student. I'm a student of Russian
right,
history.
right.
I can take you back 1,000 years
Mhm.
in Russian history. It's the greatest empire, It's the greatest continental empire that ever existed.
Mm.
It doesn't conquer lands overseas the way the other empires did. It conquered lands, one country or one people after another, and it now controls the largest land mass in the world.
Mm.
And who are the Russians? The Russians came from a small area around Moscow. That's who the Russians are, and yet they control all the space, and they did it by colonial conquest. Now they've lost a little bit of their empire, and they want some of it. They want the critical pieces back, and they're fighting in Georgia, they're fighting in Moldova, they're fighting in Ukraine, they're fighting soon to be probably, I don't know, Uzbekistan. So little by little, they're trying to regain their lost territories.
Got it.
And if we don't have NATO defend Europe, that will include all of the Baltic. It will include part of Finland. It may even include part of Norway. It will certainly include much of Poland.
Oh, you're saying if NATO was to just collapse.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Yeah.
And if we make a peace with Ukraine, Ukraine will be taken over by Russia within. If we make a deal with Ukraine and Ukraine is out of NATO or no chance of support by NATO, Ukraine will fall to Russia within 5 years.
Mm.
The moment Trump leaves the White House, Ukraine will fall.
I see. Got it. Okay.
And if Ukraine falls, Poland follows.
Okay. All right. All right. So have we covered it?
All my opinion. Don't kill me. It's just what I believe.
Yes. Well, Larry, the reason we have you on is because we respect your opinion. Otherwise, we would say, let's get somebody different. We already mentioned, of course, that Tesla had a rough day today. It was down a little at the opening and dropped immediately down $9+ came back to within an inch of going green, and then finished down about $6. So a tremendous amount of movement today, up and down. In the old days when I was day trading, I would have made money today. This is the perfect kind of day. But anyway, we end up down 614. We end up in the after hours up 61 cents. So not much volatility in the after hours. Dow down 257, NASDAQ down 59, S&P down 16. But the bonds, the bonds recovered almost everything from Friday, going down like eight basis points, if I remember correctly. But we're still at four, but that didn't hold all day either. So anyway, we end up at still almost at 4.3, Larry. So the bonds are still on the 10-year. So the bonds are still kind of up there in terms of interest rates. We've got the other thing happening this week is only 3 days away, and we get the Fed decision. I have capitulated. I believe they will do the 25 basis point cut.
Yeah.
And we've had a couple of reports out the last couple of days that are starting to suggest that, back to your and my feeling, that we've been in recession.
Yeah.
You still think so?
Oh, I mean, I haven't changed my view.
Okay.
You turned on me, but I haven't changed my opinion.
You haven't changed your opinion. Okay. So I changed my opinion because I kept seeing these other stats coming
So
in.
now you changed your opinion back again?
Well,
Come on, what are you, a comedian? I mean, come on.
I'm on the fence here, Larry. I'm on the fence right now.
Well, Kathy has made the point, Kathy Wood has made the point that this is a rolling recession.
Right.
This is not a recession of the Magnificent Seven,
Right.
of the top of the tech stack. This is not a recession of government employment.
Right.
This is a recession of the consumer and a recession of the small manufacturer and the small business. That's where the recession lies. Government employees doing great, doing well. Mag 7 doing great, doing well.
Healthcare doing fine. Yep.
Yeah, and between all of that, they're struggling.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And here's the bitter pill. With bonds going back up again, the real issue is, do the banks get to save themselves?
So the regional bank, are you talking about the big banks? Or you're talking about the regional
banks? The big banks.
So you've got what's his name?
Bank of America.
Yeah. Buffett selling off 2/3, I think, 3/4
of Bank of America, which is held for 20 years.
Right.
20 years, yeah.
Yeah. So he might be nervous because they were the worst of the big banks. They were in the worst position.
They were. Yeah. They are.
Okay, so you think there's still a concern there if interest rates?
I think a concern will arise. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Oil continues up. It is well, actually, since I last looked, it has dropped back down a little bit, just showing unchanged now in the pre-market. But at $71, it's still in good shape. But the OPEC nations confirmed today that they will not increase their production before the end of the year. They've pushed it into next year.
Oil?
Yep.
Price if Trump, price if Kamala. What's your bet?
If Trump, it goes down. If Kamala, it goes up.
But how much?
Oh, how much? For Trump, well, initially it'll only be a few dollars, but over time, I think we're talking maybe even a 5 handle. 50,
you might be right. You might
55,
be right.
56, something like that. Maybe it takes a month or 2 months or 3 months, but
it'll take, but okay.
Yeah. And then if Kamala, it'll just start easing up, start moving up and up and up, because I don't think that she's changed her mind. She's going to stop fracking, and she's going to do everything she can to stop oil production in the United States.
If Trump announces the approval of 𝐓𝐮𝐲 on day one, price could drop $5.
All by just one day. Yeah. No kidding. Yeah, I mean, the amount of oil and natural gas that the United States has compared to any other country is just a phenom. It's just unbelievable. And that's what they know about.
Yeah.
What they don't know about. Natural gas continues to be very high, Larry. $2.76. Gold It's trending sideways the last few days. 20,
Wow. It's
27.
taking a breather before it heads up north. All
Okay.
right. Prediction of gold
Yep.
price if Kamala or if Trump?
A harder one. There's so many moving parts on that one.
I don't think it's different. I don't think it changes.
Okay. Oh, you don't think it changes either way? So it's all
I
about
think gold is
uh,
all about the BRICS buying gold, replacing dollars.
okay. Will the BRICS be more aggressive or less aggressive 6 months after Trump's in office?
Continue to be aggressive. No change.
Aggressive. Okay. So you don't think he's going to go have a conversation?
Why would he?
Why would he care about the BRICS?
Let them buy all the gold.
Oh, I see. Buy out the gold. Okay.
Let them buy it. That's fine. I mean, it's, to me, it's a route to nowhere, but that's a whole nother matter. We can have that conversation.
So Trump says he wants the dollar to weaken, which would help exports.
Well, the more gold they buy, the weaker the dollar will become.
Right. So therefore he wouldn't care.
He
But
wouldn't.
but do we want the BRICS to be a successful association?
Why not? Great
Um,
to trade with them. Great to trade with them.
right to trade with the BRICS. Okay.
Yeah, why not?
Okay. All right. Okay. What else? We've got Bitcoin down to 67.8.
Oh my.
What about this?
If it's down to 67.8, that's a bet against Trump.
It is a bet against. Well, I'm telling you, I think everything, including the betting markets, started hedging. It might have been that Iowa number that came out, which was such an outlier, completely different than anything else. But it started to come back this way. Even the betting markets are almost back to 60-40. But there seemed to be kind of a let's hedge our bets. Bitcoin might be still hedging down 868 today. It's not a huge amount. But yeah, that's what it seems to be going on. Yeah. Yeah. So do you think it goes down if Kamala is
Yeah, I think, the first couple of days trading is not really real.
right?
It's
Right.
people
Knee jerk.
reacting knee jerk. But over time, I think it just continues its natural course upwards. I think we're going to see it continue upwards. I think it's kind of, if you think about the dollar and you think about the BRICS, somewhere else, there is this vast mass of investors with money.
Yeah.
And for them, this is a good, hedge against both the dollar and the BRICS in a way.
Yes. Yes.
It's kind of it's a sense of independence, and I think it's going to become an important asset class.
Okay. The equities are flat, Larry. Do you think they're flat all day tomorrow?
Wow. They could be skittish. They could have a bit of skittishness in their pricing, but
Positioning.
positioning. I think they'll end flat.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, that's where we are going into tomorrow. I did remember on Friday, I forgot to ask you, and I want to ask you now since it just popped into my mind, even though it's kind of off topic. We have got XAI doing another round of financing, which is pretty interesting and exciting. Who knows, maybe you're investing.
I invested in the first round. I don't think I'm going to invest in this round.
All right. Okay.
And not for any other reason, but I'm fairly well invested right now in AI. I mean, my portfolio is very balanced. I have increased my cash hedge recently, and I'm maintaining that. My cash hedge is pretty large. It's the biggest single asset in my portfolio, so I'm keeping it that way. But this is not the time to take brave, actions.
So my question would be, I don't think there's any way it's possible, given the timing, but this would have been a great opportunity for Tesla to have bought a piece of XAI so that we, the investors the Tesla folk could feel like we have a piece.
I'm not opposed to that. I would support, a $5 billion investment buy Tesla into XAI. A little loath to cut into our capital
Right.
stash
Right.
at this point. I think we're going to need that stash quite badly. The more successful robotaxis are, the more our cash stack is going to be necessary. And I think that the opportunities for Tesla are just so great. But there is such a huge such a huge inter
Relationship.
intercompany opportunity and great such a great relationship that I wouldn't have any objection to an investment by Tesla in XAI. I mean, X is fully invested in XAI,
Right.
and it seems to make a lot of sense. Yeah. By the way, SpaceX is killing it.
You no kidding.
I mean, they are killing it. And the future for SpaceX is just phenomenal. Why not Tesla invest a little bit in SpaceX?
Exactly. Yeah, right, right. Yeah, Brian Wong continues his position that SpaceX will eventually be even bigger than Tesla after Optimus, just because of the communications.
It is extraordinary. It's just extraordinary. When I think about the building blocks that went into SpaceX and how they happened,
Yeah.
I mean, amazing, just amazing.
All right, Larry. I was just with Brian a couple hours ago, so you don't look anything like Brian. Larry, thank you as always for jumping on board on Monday nights, and we'll see what happens tomorrow. We'll uh, assumedly be on pins and needles. I hope it's not quite as exciting as the Rams game was last night, but that got my heart going. That was quite.
I have no idea who the
I
Rams
know
are.
you have no idea, but it was an amazing, crazy game.
Well,
So,
I'm glad you had a good time.
all right, Larry, it's been great. And to all of you out there, as always, it has been great talking to you.